or Razor, I should say. I'm Storm, joined by Hurix. We are at the Atlantic City Fan Expo here, bringing you all of the Overwatch action this weekend. Hurix, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm really excited for some Overwatch action. Got insane teams. I mean, we got a lot to talk about for sure about the qualifier that just happened last night, but I mean, it's going to be nonstop this weekend for sure.
Yeah, we've got 16 teams battling it out for a $5,000 prize pool this weekend. Tonight, we're going to have a lot of group action play, and then followed by tomorrow, we're going to have a single elimination bracket. A little bit of a change from last time. Last time we'd had a long double elimination bracket. We've got single elimination starting, round of 8, of course, with our 8 teams, the top 2 from each group here today. Like I said, $5,000 prize pool. 8 teams were invited. 8 teams qualified from yesterday's tournament, and Curix, talking about that qualifier a little bit, a few upsets definitely coming from that last night.
Well, I think the most interesting fact was just what happened in that upper bracket, the upper portion of the bracket, that semifinal matchup, Vice and Virtue. Those two names are certainly names that we probably wouldn't have expected to make it that far. Vice, of course, with a really strong roster. We both know a lot about Vice as we've been covering them for the past, I would say, 3 weeks to a month at this point. Led, of course, by Wolf is their shot caller, actually playing the Lucio role. You guys might remember from teams like NG Red, playing some of those Widowmaker roles, playing some Genji, playing even some hit scan. So very dynamic player, going to be shot calling for those guys. And they actually led themselves beating out Virtue 2-1 and really kind of trounced the qualifier a bit.
Well, let's not forget about their earlier matches before they actually took on Virtue. They beat out Brazil Gaming House, a team that nearly took down NRG last time. NRG only took them down 2-1 to qualify for it, and then didn't, of course, qualify out of their group stage. But they beat Brazil Gaming House in the round of 16 to qualify, and then they took on Gale Force, who is no longer Gale Force. They are actually being known as Good Round throughout the tournament here, so that could be a little interesting.
I like their other name.
I liked Gale Force for sure, but
no, not that one. The one that they were wanting to go with was Oink Oink, Here Comes the Boink, and I really wanted them to stay with that. They wound up not going with that. It's going to be a good round instead, but I think the chat is going to love Oink Oink, Here Comes the Boink a little bit more.
I'm very glad we don't actually have to say that name. But they took down they took down Gale Force, who is now Good Round. They beat them out 2-1 in the round of 8, which is a big shocker. And I mean, this team, Vice, they've got a lot of players we know. The Scratch coming over from Nameless. Nameless consisted of a few players that you will see today, most notably Primo Dolce, who is on Renegades now. He played with Scratch. Scratch, very excellent at the Zarya and Diva role. Hopefully we get to see them maybe move on into tomorrow. Won't have them on stream here today, but they've got Sprison as well, who's played on a few good teams. So that's a pretty powerhouse roster, I'd have to say. And then, of course, we can't forget about who won the tournament. Kungarna coming up with a big tournament victory. They took down quite a few teams, and most notably, their roster has changed up since splitting from Splice. They have Bishu, who is back on this team now.
Yeah, back from the old Kungarna roster. He's been bouncing around a little bit. We saw him on a couple of other teams after Kungarna wound up moving around a little bit, around that Ghost Gaming era, moving into the Splice where they brought those 3 guys in. But yeah, bringing Bishu back in place of Graceful, who wound up going over to You Guys Get Paid. They actually didn't even make it through the qualifier, so interesting to see that happen. And then Pooks, actually, from NRG, a guy that we haven't really seen much of since leaving NRG, and he is now back into the competitive atmosphere and now playing with Kungarna. And I think this roster is strong, man.
I think they are too, and they have Dogman, of course. Dogman did play with them for a little bit at the end of their kind of era with Splice. So I'm looking forward to mainly the reunion of Bishu. And yes, guys, it is that Bishu from League of Legends. He previously played with Kungarna. He was on the rise with Kungarna. When Kungarna started to make a name for themselves back in November of this past year, we were casting them in a lot of weekly tournaments. He was with the team at Zarya. He was a staple to that team before they changed things up. Then he went to play for Ronin. Then he tried out for Complexity, and now he finds himself back with Kungarna.
One thing that kind of I think is noteworthy, though, is that Graceful obviously has a huge impact on a roster. We see that, YGGP playing that up a lot when they brought him in. But the thing about Bishu is I'm kind of questioning his versatility, his flexibility in that off-tank position, because obviously he's a very strong Zarya. We know he's a very strong Zarya. We know that he can play Diva as well, but what else is he capable of? That's going to be the main question on my mind, because obviously Kungarna is a contender team, in my opinion, that they could do well in this tournament, but it's going to rely on basically the flexibility out of the rest of their roster, because obviously the guys that are coming from Splice, guys like Baby Bay and Michael, are obviously very versatile, very strong, but what the question lies on, everybody else. Obviously Dogman's strong too.
Yeah, Yeah, and of course, they are in our first group here, talking a lot about Kungarna. They are in Group A with YIKES, Evil Geniuses, and Team LGLC. Group B, we've got Selfless, Rise, Tempo Storm, and Ice Block. Thoughts on those first two groups?
Well, certainly, looking at Group A, that's going to be a tough matchup, I think, actually for one of the invited teams, Evil Geniuses, because obviously Evil Geniuses is a strong team, but how are they going to match up against, obviously, YIKES, who did just beat Selfless to win out that Alien Winter Monthly Melee just, 2 days ago, and then on top of that, trying to beat out Kungarna, who just won out on the qualifier and are looking strong as ever, and then certainly LDLC is a strong team, but moving into Group B, obviously Selfless is going to be a favorite coming out of that group. Everybody else still really strong, Rise Nation, Tempo Storm, and then Ice Block is the question on my mind because obviously it's a super strong French roster, but they didn't do as hot in the qualifier as I think I would have liked to have seen them.
I have to agree on that one. They did struggle. They got taken. A team called Blacklisted in the round of 16, I think it was, took a map off of them, a team we've never heard of, haven't heard of any of the players. So it is a big question mark moving into this one. I think that second spot is definitely open for the taking with Tempo and Rise. Ice Block could pull out an upset there, but I just don't see it happening with Tempo Storm doing well. They got third yesterday. They didn't make it into the finals. They weren't able to take down Kungarna. Kungarna beat them out 2-0. But taking a look at the other two groups, Group C consists of CLG, Renegades, Vice, and Toronto Esports. And then our final one is LG Evil, Cloud9, Virtue, and Good Round, formerly Gale Force Esports. I think that is a tough last group.
Well, Gale Force, or whatever they want to be called at this point,
Good Round is
a team that actually did wind up falling a little bit short of where they were expected to go, not making it into that semifinal, where I think I was kind of anticipating them making, but they fell a little bit short. I thought they were going to
win the whole thing.
Well,
personally,
okay.
Just given their performance, they won the HTC Vive tournament, which was they beat a few pretty solid teams. They 3-0'd Toronto Esports there and a couple others, and I honestly thought they were going to win that whole thing yesterday. Kungarna was the biggest question mark there, but losing in that round of 8 match was just like, whoa, take a step back here and wonder if that has anything to do with their split off from Gale Force.
So obviously, that's a question mark on my mind. What are they going to be able to accomplish now that they've been removed from that organization? What are they going to be able to do? Is it going to be that much of a difference maker, if any at all? But obviously, for Group D, Cloud9, LG Evil, certainly looking to see what they're going to accomplish. Virtue is also in that group, so that's a big contender as well, as they made it to the semifinals. They didn't do as well as Vice, obviously, with Vice taking that matchup, or that series rather. And then for Group C, I'm definitely looking for CLG to be able to just move right through that. Obviously, with their pickup of Shake, you really want to see them do well to make sure that was actually a worthwhile pickup, because along with Hydration, was an incredibly strong duo, especially with that Farrah Mercy. That was the
only strong duo that had. That was a terrific support, but I really do think, and we're going to touch on this later when we see CLG on stream, I think Shake offers a lot more to the team, definitely. But taking a look at the matches we are going to be having coming to you guys on stream today, we're going to be starting out with a thriller. YIKES up against Kungarna. That should be a terrific match as we get these teams in the lobby getting everything ready to go, guys. Following this, we're going to see Evil Geniuses take on Kungarna. Then we're going to be moving over to Group B with Selfless and Tempo Storm. Quickly after that, Group C, CLG and Renegades, and then we're going to round out the day with 2 matches from Group D. We're going to check out LG Evil and Cloud9, and then Cloud9 up against Good Round. So a lot of terrific action. Definitely widespread throughout the groups here. I think we're going to see a lot of pretty close matchups here today.
Yeah, and I personally, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Cloud9 is going to be able to bring to the table, because, obviously with that pickup of Kaiser, you really want to see them perform well, because, Cloud9 is a team that, even looking back to the last Rumble, they did okay, but certainly not what you would have expected, bringing in, importing those 2, Asian players and bringing them over. And, they did well, but I think they're going to do even better now that they're switching things back around, moving Gods over as well. I think that's going to do well for them in the long run, especially since Kaiser is just so solid of a tank player. But we're going to be able to find out today, man.
I've got to ask you about these matches we're going to see on stream. Which one are you looking forward to most, maybe in terms of upset potential, maybe question mark, like wild card? I think going into this tournament, I see Renegades as a massive wild card for me, because their recent pickup of Zachary and Primo Dolce, they really, we saw them in the OMM monthly qualifier, I believe. but we didn't really see a whole lot from them, unfortunately. So I think, for me personally, they're a big question mark. But for you, what are you looking forward to in terms of a specific matchup here?
Well, I mean, not necessarily a specific matchup, but in that same very group, we've already talked about them a lot today. In that Group C side of things, I mean, Vice, definitely a team I would look out for. I think that they could contend well alongside Toronto Esports and Renegades, maybe a little bit less so CLG, but as long as they make it through that group stage, they will make it tomorrow into the playoffs, and I think that they can, just consistently improve, and they'll be all the better for it. Another team that I definitely think that people should be looking out for is Tempo Storm as well.
Certainly.
Did not do as well in the qualifier, but they got eliminated by Kungarna, the eventual winners of that of that qualifier. So I definitely think that's a team to look out for as well. Otherwise, obviously keep your eye out for Kungarna, see what they're going to be doing in Group A. And in Group D, I think will mostly go as anticipated. Cloud9, LG Evil, I think will be making it out of that one.
This is interesting. Taking a look at a first matchup, as we, like I had said, we're getting teams into the lobby here to get things going right away for you guys here. YIKES up against Kungarna here. Talking about this first matchup, Kungarna coming off of that big victory yesterday. I know they were excited. You look at their tweets, you just talk to them. They were very thrilled about their victories they had yesterday. They beat some pretty solid teams as well. Team LDLC, then they came through with the victory over who is it? Tempo Storm, and then Vice, of course, winning the tournament there. So big victories for them. Going up against YIKES, though, like you had mentioned, just 3-0'd Selfless.
Right.
They beat them twice there. 2-0'd them, 3-0'd them. That is scary if you're Kungarna.
I mean, here's the thing about YIKES is that a lot of people didn't realize that even during their tenure with Denial, they were still a relatively strong team. I mean, looking back over to the Alienware Monthly Melee back in April, they took third in that storm. So, I mean, they haven't, over the past month or two, they've still been a pretty strong team. They just obviously took first in that May series as well. But ever since they kind of switched their roster around, they dropped Endless and Jolson and then wound up picking up Space and Dante for those two pickups. And I know we have a lot of history with Dante, watching him play way back in the day with Momentary and, of course, Space. A big reason why you guys get paid was so phenomenal over the last 2 months or so, on top of guys like KSF and everything too. I think that really bolstered their roster. They were able to, benefit from those two guys bringing a lot of versatility into the mix for composition. And because of that, you see opportunities for YIKES where they can bring in, XQC to allow for more opportunities to go Reinhardt or Winston. ZZA could actually play Pharah now. You could bring in that Pharah Mercy combo, and that was what was so lethal against Selfless.
Exactly. They couldn't stop that Pharah Mercy combo, so I'm looking forward to seeing if we're going to have that today. We do have our map pool. It is going to be Watchpoint Gibraltar over to Nepal, and then Lijiang Tower, so a bit of control point action to get us started here today in our first streamed series here. So it looks like we're about ready to get into this one, but going into this, have to say that YIKES is the favorite, and something you kind of mentioned is we've watched these teams evolve. We've actually watched YIKES when they were Denial back in October become who they are. It took them quite some time, but I think they're definitely happy with where they're at right now.
Yep.
Heading into this matchup, are you going with YIKES to be able to take this one and start out 1-0 in the group stage?
I think this is going to be one of those matchups that I'm definitely looking forward to. As you asked me earlier, what are some of the specific matchups? This is one that I definitely should have brought up because YIKES versus Kungarna could definitely be one of those, big step-up matches for Kungarna for them to be able to make a name for themselves as, coming away from Splice, they definitely want to, with this new roster, really kind of show up and show everybody that they're still present. And this would be a great statement match to do that, especially with YIKES where they're at right now, coming off of that fresh victory just a couple days ago.
And I mean, this is like one of the final tournaments for these teams before the contenders. I think this is like do or die for a lot of teams, and a final opportunity, I think, for teams to kind of prove, their worth, and I guess find out if they need to find new players moving forward into that contenders league.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. But as we jump in, I mean, in terms of comps, I'm definitely looking to see if we're going to be seeing any kind of changes from what ZZA was doing. Definitely looking forward to seeing Ginger Pop, as he was incredibly scary the last time we saw him, especially on that Ana. So I'm definitely looking for him as well. I mean, XQC has been a staple for this roster, looking very strong, especially when he's able to play that Winston. So, I mean, this is going to be a tough matchup for Kungarna, but if they can pull away with a win here, then they're not only setting themselves up good to make it into the playoffs. I mean, they pretty much clinched that spot if they beat out YIKES. I mean, virtually that's exactly what's happening. But if they're able to do that, it also just makes a huge statement for them to be, possibly becoming a favorite in this tournament.
I mean, I wouldn't count Kungarna out right now. And I'm not saying you are by any means, but for those of you tuning into this right here, YIKES up against Kungarna, YIKES heading into this, definitely the favorites. But, I mean, this is a really strong roster. Bishu is going to be breaking out the Diva here on defense. We'll see if Remix wants to stick with the Torbjorn for the time being. He is on that, but he's all the way back in the spawn. He's going to go over, of course, over to the Winston. Can't expect the main tank for Kungarna to go ahead with the Torbjorn here. So they're going to be going with a, I guess, standard composition for the most part. Nothing too crazy out of the ordinary. Looking forward to seeing Michael back on that Tracer to get things started, though.
Absolutely, and right now we do see Ginger Pop, of course, going to be just checking to see if he can get any vision on that Hanzo. And that's one thing that we didn't really mention too much there, Storm, is, you know, there was a kind of recent patch that changed everything around with the way that Hanzo Genji works. You know, Soldier had a little bit of a change as well as Reinhardt. Those are all big changes, and we'll have to see if maybe today we'll be seeing what exactly that might entail here for these teams.
This will be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm really curious to see if that 76 change, the 1 bullet damage, is going to be making a big difference, if we're going to see more farmers because of it. But right away, we are going to see Michael just getting a little too aggressive, going to be taken out here, and because of that, that might force the rest of these guys to back off. It looks like Kungarna still are going to play a little aggressive here, maybe looking to see if they can get a pick, but right in the back, XQC diving up to the top here, trying to deal with Baby Bay on that 76.
And they're still just battling it out here, Storm. I mean, right now I'm definitely looking for ZZA to try to get a good angle here, try to get some damage into that that Soldier there for Kungarna. Baby Bay going to actually drop down. They just want to contest this as much as they possibly can, but 3 minutes on the timetable, I mean, it's certainly a good pace already set here by YIKES.
And I can't see any possible reason for Kungarna to continue, or not necessarily to continue to funnel back here, but I just can't see them winning this at this point. They're already down a few guys. TacVisor already coming down there on the side of YIKES. He's going to pick up 3 for himself, and just like that, YIKES cleaning this one up in a very quick fashion. Hurix looking really good to get things started here in the first map.
And now moving into the hangar phase, they want to see if they can get any picks if possible here. And this is where Ginger Pop and XQC get scary, because you can see them charged up with that ultimate. ZZA already wound up using that tactical visor, so not going to have that option for the nano boost, which Baby Bay and Dogman are going to be able to have. And if they can get control of that high ground, which is not going to be the case as Remix actually forced to fall down, they're not going to be able to get that nice angle that they're certainly going to be looking for. But if they get aggressive here, they might be able to get it anyways by just sliding Baby Bay along the backside.
They're going to go ahead with that nano visor there, but the sound barrier going to be able to keep them alive for just a little bit longer out from both sides here. They don't really find a whole lot off of that, and still YIKES coming out with a couple of kills off of this. Remix might be forced to pop the Primal Rage. Actually, probably a good move to hold on to that one. See if the rest of the team can die off, and maybe look for a regroup before they capture that second checkpoint here.
And Dogman just coming back from that spawn. I mean, already we're seeing YIKES with a performance very much like what we saw just a couple days ago, and I'm definitely looking to see, you know, what Dogman can do here with this swap that he just had. I mean, I just mentioned his name, and this is going to be that swap over to the Zenyatta here, and that's really going to be to try to shut down XQC, who's getting very aggressive onto him. If he can get that Discord off, maybe get some extra damage in from Baby Bay, they can actually eliminate XQC, who's a big threat right now.
I really like that move from Remix to pop the Primal Rage and actually zone out ZZA on the 76. He pushed him all the way back so he couldn't punch out the damage. He was away from his team. He was on the low ground. That allowed for Remix, or excuse me, the rest of his team to just continue to aggress on the other threats on the side of YIKES and make pretty much their first stand here on Watchpoint Gibraltar, Hurix.
And you'll notice Baby Bay actually in that really excellent position up top on the ship here, this time with the tactical visor again. So was able to get that and generate it rather quickly here, and that's obviously very good for Kungarna, as you know, they did just make their first stop, but they need to be able to continue this pressure. Diva's going to be able to jump up here, and they're going to try to assault that as well.
Well, they went ahead and moved Dante over to that Genji pick, something we've seen from him in the past. Immediately picks up 2 kills onto the supports. So they're going to go ahead and unload onto this with the nanovisor. Didn't really get a whole lot, but did kind of force him back for the most part. I felt like that was an already won team fight. Wanted to secure the second checkpoint, get themselves that additional 90 seconds, 4:15 to complete out Watchpoint Gibraltar, and they should be able to pick up the remaining stragglers on the side of Kungarna.
XQC getting very aggressive, though, against Baby Bay. And, I mean, really that double threat of XQC in space right now has just been so rough for guys like Baby Bay and Dogman to deal with at this stage. And this is going to become a huge problem for them that they're going to have to really kind of address going forward if they want to be successful, because so far this attack has gone much the way of YIKES so far with this double tank setup. with these two guys just being so aggressive.
Well, they moved over to the Far Mercy combination here, and it looks like Baby Bay tries to go ahead and pops that Tac Visor. He doesn't get anything off of it, unfortunately. Just good movement from the Farah Mercy combo to get away, zone themselves off of that, use the high ground to where Baby Bay couldn't actually find them. Now Remix going to popping his Primal Rage here. He's going to pin him in the corner, and this is a great position for Kungarna to maybe get a little bit of that cleanup through Don't here.
And they do have that Discord as well for ZZA. ZZA getting away with 1 HP there, Storm. Going to get some heals, but luckily for the side of Kungarna, they're going to have that option for Baby Bay along with Dogman to really try to address that issue of the Pharah in the sky. It doesn't look like it's working out at the moment, but you would think that with those two options, as well as the D.Va to be able to kind of suppress some of the damage that he's going to be able to pump out, they should be able to kind of address this, but so far it just hasn't happened.
They haven't found a way to deal with it. That payload is nearing the checkpoint, and there's still just under 3 minutes to go. Pulse Bomb not going to find anything there, unfortunately, from Michael, but they go ahead and pop the sound barrier here. Finding a pick there on XQC, that's exactly what Dogman needs to make sure he's doing, getting an opening pick onto Winston. Like you had mentioned earlier when we were talking today, XQC on the Winston has improved so much as of lately, and it's really started to show, finally being shut down by Dogman.
I mean, he's definitely always been pretty solid, but at this point, I mean, he's definitely shown up as a really, really solid Winston, and I feel like it really has bolstered them a little bit on top of all the changes that they made to their roster. Of course, Dante and Space being the two ones that we named earlier, but still, we see the same setup going through. ZZA with, already a pick on the Dogman though, and onto Baby Bay. There's no way to deal with the Pharah threat at all.
That looked like a good position from Bishu as he just threw up the defense matrix, but unfortunately too late there. ZZA comes through with a couple of picks. That will be a round secured there for the side of YIKES. 153 remaining in the time bank here, and wow, what a performance. They weren't stopped until just before the second checkpoint, and even then, they pretty much rolled over Kungarna. Now it's their opportunity to see what they can do on offense here.
153 is a solid time, and certainly it feels like YIKES really kind of rolled over them, but it is a beatable time.
Certainly.
I mean, we could see Kungarna turning things back around and getting aggressive and, really just pushing it through, but at this stage, I really feel like YIKES has got this one in the bag, at least this map here, because they were just able to take it against Kungarna, who honestly, to an extent, kind of countercomped them a little bit and still weren't able to get the job done. I mean, Dogman and Baby Bay were pressured far too hard by XQC and Space in the backlines, and they weren't able to get the space that they needed away from guys like Space to be able to actually deal with ZZA in the sky, and then supported, of course, as well by Ginger Pop. So.
And even Bishu on the D.Va didn't really make much of a difference in trying to deal with some of that rocket threat from the skies here. So I'm curious to see if Bishu wants to stick with that D.Va. And, something he shined with, like we had mentioned earlier when we were talking about him and Kungarna, something he used to shine with was the Zarya, but something you don't really see as often anymore. So he's probably going to go ahead and stick with that D.Va pick here. We'll have to see if Dogman is just going to open up, of course, with an arrow to see if anybody's hiding around the corner there. But Ginger Pop currently sitting on that Torbjorn, making his way back to the base, though, with the Hoon to make sure he can swap over in time for the rest of his team. So nothing crazy composition-wise here, but what do you want to see differently here from Kungarna, I guess, when they make their offensive push?
Well, you're obviously going to be seeing some aggression from XQC in Space. So at this point, you might want to, I mean, we know they're going to play a dive, but maybe they want to play a more reactive style, typically what you would see from some of the teams over in EU especially, where you see them kind of letting a team get aggressive and jump into them, and then they react and they pressure and they just choke you out right from the front line and taking out guys like XQC. I mean, that would be huge. They have the ability to put the Discord down. They have the damage to do it with Michael there, Bishu there as well. I mean, they have the ability to go ahead with that, and that could certainly press their attack, because if they get that advantage early on by finding a pick against an aggressive XQC or Space, they're really going to be able to do a lot with that.
Something I really like here from the side of YIKES is they're not waiting for the offense to make their push. They just dive in as a collective group. Of course, they did lose to Hoon here, but they made a good push near the base to where they could still make a stand before that first checkpoint is even getting close to being captured by the side of Kungarna. So Kungarna, a little bit of time, not necessarily wasted, got some ult charge, is going to be able to move the payload a little bit further here as Baby Bay continues to sit on this Widowmaker pick.
This is the problem, actually, with the Widowmaker pick, though, for the defensive side of YIKES. I mean, at this stage, where he's kind of nested in here, kind of insulated into this back corner and server, is he's just going to be able to take free shots against guys like SQC, maybe even Dante. If he gets a kill off on Dante early on, then they're going to be able to walk this payload in here, Storm.
Looks like Dante is going to come around the backside here, maybe looking for Baby Bay. Baby Bay does spot him here as they pick up a big kill onto XQC. They should be able to follow through with this one. They've got the numbers advantage here. They don't need to use any ultimates at this point. They've used the infrasight, but now that Baby Bay's down, do you make a change in the hangar phase?
I think at this point, yeah, I would definitely make the change. You have the ability. He already used his infrasight. He's gonna come off of that short spawn right there as the timing worked out, and he does make that change over the soldier. I definitely like that a lot, especially since if he actually uses his team, you know, guys like Bishu and Remix to acquire the ability to just get up on top of this ship, then he's really going to be at a distinct advantage up against that opposing soldier there, ZZA, despite the fact that ZZA is actually sitting on a nano visor.
And we are going to see more aggressive play come out here on the side of Kungarna as there's a pulse bomb comes out, doesn't find a stick unfortunately, but the big thing is they got space out of that mech, so it will allow Baby Bay to have kind of free fire capabilities on the 76, but ZZA comes around the corner, has his own nano visor like you had mentioned, and comes up big here, and finally we are going to actually see XQC using his ultimate just to make sure he can keep himself alive, find a couple of late kills there.
So 4 ultimates used in that fight there by YIKES. That's obviously really big, and certainly, I mean, Baby Bay wanted to come away with a little bit more ult charge in that one so that they could, you know, press the attack right onto that ship, get aggressive, try to push them off, at least push ZZA off so Baby Bay could work his way over there. But with the discords that Dogman's going to be able to provide, if Baby Bay can start getting onto those targets, get his ult up rather quickly, start dishing some damage out, then maybe he might actually beat ZZA to that next tack visor, and they might be able to get that out and actually get a wipe going, because really that's kind of what they're relying on here.
To see if they can deal with Space, who's coming up on the self-destruct, and just like that, they find the opening pick, and I think Remix keeping himself alive is a vital part to Kungarna, of course, being able to continue to get aggressive, so losing him early on is not a good sign. They used a sound barrier, so that is going to be big, but still, Baby Bay comes up with a 60 to 70% off of that push alone, so he will have tack visor ready to go for the next fight here, and I think that's pretty big, especially since Dahoon just used that sound barrier.
You certainly want to have Dogman ready to go with that Transcendence, and while he wasn't that close just a moment ago, he keeps dishing out these big, hardy right clicks out onto the ship, and he's dishing out a ton of damage. Certainly going to have enough for Transcendence into this next fight, especially if he can find a little bit more onto XQC across the way, and does get that Discord early. If they can actually get away from some of this instant pressure here, somehow Dogman lives, Transcendence ready to go.
And that's unfortunate that Baby Bay drops there because he had tack visor ready to go, so not going to have that kind of offensive power. They go ahead and pop Transcendence. I don't like that at all, but they're going to actually continue to play aggressive. XQC going to get that nano boost here, trying to get on top of Remix, who was hit with a bio grenade. Nice touch there coming out from Ginger Pop to make sure that he was hit with that one, but still Kungarna coming back with a few more kills. Baby Bay back in the mix now. He might be able to turn this around.
We'll have to see. I mean, we do see the Diva just pressuring forward. ZZA is down pretty low, and that's Baby Bay pulling out the visor. He's onto the point. There's a barrier down from XQC, and it's really just him and Dahoon on the point, but the kill actually comes out. Is Ginger Pop going to be able to swing the tides of this one here?
I don't think so. Dante is actually in the mix as well. They're going to back off of this for the time being. XQC is going to come back into this, get some good heals there from Ginger Pop, so they still have 4 people back onto this. Nice sleep dart into the back, though, as Baby Bay gets hit there. Pulse bump from Michael connects. It takes care of business onto 76 Heroics, and just like that, Kungarna are going to have a pretty solid amount of time to be able to push this to the final checkpoint here. Not quite as much as we saw there from YIKES, but 3:15 is still doable.
So think about the timeline, certainly. I mean, 1:53 is the final time set by YIKES, and it seems as though YIKES pulled out a lot of time there, but still very much in a possibility for the ability to just get the same exact time here. So, I mean, they very well could pull that off. Dante going to get pressured there, but there's the swap that we were looking for. ZZA actually making the swap over, but Bishu finishes the job that Baby Bay started.
Yeah, I mean, he gets some help from Dogman. Dogman needs to try to do what he can with that Discord orb. They didn't have a Mercy, of course. They didn't make that change. Ginger Pop is getting pretty close here to a Nano Boost, so they might actually keep him on that Ana instead of making that change over to Mercy here. But this is Kungarna cleaning this up. Still plenty of time, YIKES, to get a regroup. But, you know, one team fight here for the side of Kungarna could mean a quicker time.
And really, I mean, I think it's a lot to do with that swap that they made with Dogman. He's going to have the Transcendence ready, and they should be able to win this fight, especially if they put out some pressure, kill this Lucio off, and they do find that kill storm.
but still the Primal Rage being popped there from XQC. Transcendence is out here as well. They have an opportunity. Now ZZA coming around the corner here. He's got the Nano Boost. He doesn't have Attack Visor, but it's all Bishu up in the face. Good plays coming out there from the Diva for Kungarna. Need to deal with the Lucio and Tracer. They should be able to take them out here. Space is back in the mix, though. He's in the mix still. Now going to be D-Mech. XQC is here. Hurix, I'm afraid that is it, as it looks like it will be a quicker time just by 1
Slower
second.
time by 1 second.
Slower time, you are correct, by 1 second there from Kungarna, meaning they will push once again. But boy, do we have a series on our hand just from that. Impressive pushes from both ends.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we could sit here and say all day that YIKES definitely looked incredibly strong, but there was some really solid moments where we saw the snowball just working and heavily favored for Kungarna as they just pushed it forward, and especially with the Transcendences. I mean, they were winning those fights very much in their favor when they had the Transcendence available. Obviously, a lot could be said about what that ult does in terms of a team fight. It definitely sways things in your favor very heavily, but they did a lot with it, and it definitely showed, and that's why we're seeing them kind of tied neck and neck at the moment here on Gibraltar to start this everything off here in the group stages.
And something I've got a question for you here. Do they go back, Kungarna, do they go back to what they ran previously to capture this first checkpoint? Because it was rather quick. They had Baby Bay on the Widowmaker. Currently, Pooks is sitting on this one. We'll have to see if he actually wants to stay with it or make the change here. But what are you expecting here, I guess, in total? Well, looks like Baby Bay is on 76, so they might just stick with what they ran before because it worked.
It definitely worked. I mean, I think that I would stick Baby Bay on the 76 personally and leave him on this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought over the Widowmaker because it does create a different dynamic that the opponent has to kind of play into a little bit differently. But if you have him on the 76, you create more consistent pressure. The Widowmaker didn't really create too many picks, so I think this is going to be just as good for them. Obviously, things could change around on YIKES' side to kind of adapt to this, but I think holistically, Soldier 76 is going to be a stronger pick for them here.
I like this pick up by Dogman again on the Zenyatta, showing his flexibility, making big plays for his team, and immediately they find a few kills here, and this is a terrific start once again for the side of YIKES, and on the side of Kungarna, and someone we really haven't been talking a whole lot about is Michael on the Tracer. What sort of an impact do you think he's really having here on this Tracer? Because he's really finding, not necessarily like the picks around the side, not huge bull spawn plays, but he is being a nuisance in that of itself.
Well, the big thing is that he's actually peeling Remix and Bishu off, or sorry, he's peeling XQC and Space off a little bit. And again, if we look back to the first attack that we saw, those were the big problems. He's just really kind of focusing XQC down along with that Discord that's come out. So it's created a lot more opportunities for space to be provided for guys like Dogman and Baby Bay.
Still, they are going to get the mech off of Bishu here. That is a big, oh man, look at this. I was looking at the health pools coming out there for YIKES. They all just kind of dropped at once. Big damage coming out there from the side of Baby Bay and the rest of his squad there. That's an easy first checkpoint, going to be captured out. 33 seconds remaining now. Of course, they will have to push through overtime, but the big question here is, can Kungarna get a few picks to where they force another full regroup from YIKES?
It should be noted that Dahoon is on this Zenyatta at the moment. I mean, kind of almost on pace with Dogman there with the Transcendence coming up pretty soon, and certainly they're going to want this for this next fight because you will see Dogman pulling his out more than likely, as it is going to enter overtime. They need to win every fight from here on out if they want to continue this push.
They're going to go ahead and pop Transcendences from both sides here, so not either side really not going to take a whole lot of damage to get the fight started. We're in overtime now. There is a Primal Rage, and nice job from Remix. He actually knocks ZZI off the high ground with the Tac Visor, or excuse me, he didn't have Tac Visor. He only had Nano Boost. Tac Visor was still about 10+% off, so now he's forced to pop this one, but it's into a sound barrier. The big thing is, though, they lost Baby Bay, so not a lot of damage really available for Kungarna.
Well, they still have Michael. He's at about 10 HP. If he can get a health pack and get a little bit healthier, he might be able to deal with Dante. He finds the kill.
Bases in the area, in the mech. It's a 3-on-2 on the payload here. They take care of business. It's Baby Bay on the payload. He is the lone survivor. We'll have to see how long he can last. Now Dogman back in the mix here, going to try to keep him alive. He is the only one. Pook's coming around on the Lucio. We know how well Lucio can stay alive by himself here, but I'm afraid that should be it. I'm not sure if Remix is able to make it back in time.
I don't know. Pooks is going to die off. Overtime's going to tick down, and they get 46 meters after that first objective, Storm. So a decent a decent distance that they were able to set there for themselves. And now on defense, they really need to shut YIKES down early to create some momentum for their defensive side so that they can actually pull this off. I mean, they definitely set it up nicely for themselves. Now it's all about execution on the defensive side.
I mean, exact same times, except for 1 second difference from both teams. So that's not really going to be making much of a difference, to say the least here, Hurix. So moving into this final push from YIKES on the offensive ends. A single hold from Kungarna can put YIKES in a rough spot because we didn't see it really a hold until the end from YIKES there. So if Kungarna can find themselves with a single team fight victory, that could mean YIKES have to move throughout most of the remaining distance in overtime, in which a single team wipe is GG for them.
I mean, YIKES definitely on the defensive side certainly put themselves a little bit behind the ball a little bit just because they lose that first fight. Yes, they can make it back to get that second fight, but as soon as momentum is in favor of Kungarna, they're definitely going to be able to press that for sure. And that's exactly what we saw both times. Now the question is, can Kungarna win that first fight on defense? It's definitely going to be really rough for them to be able to pull that off. Dogman back over onto the Ana as opposed to, the Zenyatta that was working for them on the attacking side, but they definitely had a little bit of an issue dealing with XQC in space when they could get aggressive and kind of control the pace of the engagement, and that's certainly going to be a huge problem for Kungarna moving forward, is that when XQC in space can decide when and where they want to go in, I don't know if Dogman and Baby Bay are going to be able to deal with that. We'll have to see if maybe Bishu can make some plays and kind of protect a little bit there.
Well, they are going to play quite reserved here, trying to make a hold back towards the first checkpoint. Nothing too crazy coming out to get this one started here. What do you think that Ana pick over the Zenyatta really provides for Kungarna here?
Well, it provides a lot more sustain. Obviously, the Ana is going to be able to put out a lot more healing, and certainly up top, the way that he's playing way up back in the back, he's going to be able to, stay relatively safe, especially if he gets some good peels. And we saw that already coming out from primarily guys like Remix, and actually Michael even still. Michael was able to pull off that kill onto ZZA up top very early on.
ZZA did find that pick, though, to get things started. But, I mean, it's pretty much trades back and forth here. And trades, I think, favor the defense at this point because it's getting close to that time where, once that first checkpoint is hit, if it is hit, that is in an overtime. And you can't afford to continue to funnel back into this if you're YIKES at this point, Hurix. You need a full regroup. And, at that, Space is pretty far up there. Needs to back off. He does have a little bit of help from XQC here. But I like this play. I like the aggressive play coming out from Remix and Bishu in particular.
I definitely like the way that they're doing this too because it's giving ample time for Baby Bay to actually get his ultimate up. They need that tech visor coming into this next fight so he can actually make use of Dogman's Nano Boost that's alive right now. We're going to see the barrier go down actually on the floor. That's not good. Baby Bay going to be able to slide around and most likely be able to find a kill, but he doesn't find anything with it, Storm.
As Bishu was taken out of the mech, he was actually taken down completely. XQC receives the Nano Boost instead of ZZA, but that's actually good because ZZA was taken down immediately by Baby Bay. We are going to hit overtime here. Even if we do see Kungarna lose this fight, they still have an opportunity to regroup. This is do or die for YIKES here. They need to stay on the payload. It's taken down. We are going to see a Primal Rage coming out there for XQC. Pulse Bomb comes through, doesn't find the pick, but they actually do come up with the kills onto both supports, and it looks like YIKES have an opportunity here to get a regroup off of this.
Now the question is, Bishu, can he find the kill that he needs with the self-destruct? He needs to basically wipe the floor. Can he find it? He doesn't find anything. XQC was just right under the payload.
And this is okay from Kungarna's perspective. YIKES, that was terrific on their end to be able to come back into this one. Dogman just wants to regroup with the rest of his team, and despite that happening, I think only one team fight should seal the deal. There will be a funnel from the defense, especially with, it's about the payload's halfway to the second checkpoint here, so I think one final team fight should ensue here to be able to see who comes out as the victors of this first match.
And look at the way the ultimates are kind of working out. I mean, picks are going to be everything here because we are going to be seeing both teams going up with the sound barrier. Dogman didn't actually benefit from the one on the side of Kungarna from Pooks, and Remix falls early here.
So does the DPS threat, though, from the side of YIKES. That's a big pickup. Michael's still running rampant around here. Pulse Bomb comes out there, doesn't find a whole lot there, unfortunately. Get a little bit of damage out onto XQC, but not going to be able to find the kill. Attack Visor now comes up from up top. Can Baby Bay turn this around here? This is a long walk for the defense, but Michael's cleaning this up. They might be able to take the victory off of this.
How did they turn this back around? I mean, Dogman, the Ana for Kungarna was eliminated early on. Remix fell early too, but somehow Baby Bay and Michael, along with Remix on the point, are just cleaning up, and they do it!
GG coming out there from the side of Kungarna, taking the first map in this best of 3. And, Hurix heading into this series, I mean, you give it to YIKES. You coming into the tournament, you give it to YIKES. With their impressive performance in the monthly melee this past week, but a question mark for me was that group BBA lost to LG Evil 0-2, especially with how poor LG Evil played previously in that day this past weekend. That was a question mark for me, wondering about that, and Kungarna kind of showing a little bit of exposure here on that end of YIKES.
And another thing to take note of is when you look at a team that does well, has a great performance off the bat of victory over Selfless, especially given the current Selfless curse or whatever you want to call it. The fact that any major tournament that they've been in, they really have. I mean, they've been struggling to get those first place finishes, second, third. I mean, you look at another team like Liquid, a very solid team, but beat out Selfless, but still hasn't had those same kind of performances. Even looking back to the last Rumble, they lost in the qualifier too in the same spot that Gale Force did.
To be fair though, Liquid kind of came out of nowhere. They didn't really have a whole lot of good performances, and then they just
whereas Denial
whoa,
and now YIKES did.
I mean, this has just been better tournament by tournament from a lot of these teams here, and YIKES, of course, they're not out with one map loss or anything. We're heading to Nepal for the second map to see if they can turn it around, and this is a question for you. What do you think about the Far Mercy seeing a lot more of that here from the side of YIKES moving forward into two King of the Hill maps?
Well, it's something that you could see. I mean, the thing is that on Nepal, you certainly could see it. I mean, Village is one that definitely stands out in my mind as a potential Fair Mercy map that you could see ZZA and Ginger Pop pulling out. Obviously, Ginger Pop on the Ana is just as solid. I would be just as afraid of YIKES if he was on the Ana as well. So regardless of what ZZA is on, whether it be Soldier or whether it be Pharah or anything in between, you're still going to have threats to worry about, and especially with XQC in space. The thing about YIKES, obviously ZZA and Ginger Pop against Selfless were incredibly strong, but I think more often than not, the problem is usually going to be XQC in space. They create so much extra pressure on that front line, sometimes even on back line. I mean, whatever they're targeting is going to have a bad game. They're going to have a bad time. So,
and something that I was going to ask you about is what sort of an impact, of course, Space, new to this roster, what sort of an impact has he made? I mean, obviously with the tournament victory, huge, but, coming into this, we didn't really, he created a lot of pressure like you had mentioned, but it hasn't been like one of those massive playmakers like maybe we would see from YIKES. All six of those guys can come up big. So really haven't seen that, I think, from anyone in particular on the side of YIKES thus far.
Well, I think the big thing specifically with Space is that it brought a little bit more compositional flexibility.
Yeah, definitely.
And the reason behind that is because if you look back, you see guys like ZZA, forced onto Roadhog and stuff like that, and that still might be the case going forward. But, it just gives them a little bit more to work with in terms of, especially even with Dante too. It just gave them more to work with. It gives them more options, flexibility. Space can play any one of those off-tank positions and play it alongside the best of them in the NA region right now. So I'm definitely looking at this point to say, honestly, that Space coming to this roster was probably one of the biggest impactful things that they could have done. Obviously, they were good before.
Oh, yeah, easily.
They were good before, but I think they're even better now.
Certainly, and I'm excited to see ZZA and Ginger Pop on that Far Mercy setup because we saw this past week how deadly those two can be on that. It's kind of like what CLG was with Hydration and but even more deadly, to be quite honest here. So looking forward to seeing if the side of Kungarna can actually deal with these guys, because we look at a roster like Selfless, who has personally one of the best 76s in the West, if you ask me, on their team, and they couldn't deal with it. So that's a big question mark. Can Baby Bay, can Dogman, and Bishu deal with this deadly setup?
I think that was more of a holistic team issue that they weren't able to deal with it. So maybe Kungarna is going to be able to pull this off. I mean, we did see the Fair and Mercy coming out before. Kungarna still able to win that last map there, but this is a totally different map that they're playing here, and now getting very aggressive is ZZA, already looking for a kill, but he's going to be taken out obviously here by Baby Bay, but of course ZZA is going to be finishing himself off.
And something I really like to see is that Dogman is a part of a lot of these pickups, and I think that's something he really brings to the team that they didn't really necessarily have on Splice. Dogman, someone he's kind of been bouncing from team to team here, but hopefully
as a DPS player,
yeah, hopefully he's found a spot here with Kungarna, because I like his Zenyatta play. Hopefully he can continue to do that with them, and maybe even on some other picks. But right away we see XQC applying that pressure you were talking about back on the point here, and right away picks up that crucial kill, I think, onto Dogman.
Still, you have to deal with Michael in this situation. He's just so strong on this roster. I mean, the fact that you have so many different threats here when you play against Kungarna, obviously you're looking at guys like Baby, you're looking at guys like Michael typically, but then you also have to deal with Dogman, who is incredibly strong. I mean, he comes from a DPS background, but look at that barrage, man.
That was perfect setup coming out there from the Pharah. He used Concussive Blast to put him in a prime position to just drop that barrage right onto him. So excellent setup coming out there. And they're able to take the point. 37% put up from Kungarna. Definitely a solid start, but now they're starting to come up on a few pretty big ultimates. I mean, they've got 4 coming down the pipeline in a few seconds here.
The big thing I'm looking for is Ginger Pop. With this Resurrect available, I mean, is it going to be what they need it to be? They need to be able to keep this point throughout this next fight to be able to hold on to their hopes of taking this map here. And now, very aggressive Remix and Baby coming out with ultimates, and they're looking for kills, but they don't find much of anything. I mean, they only really demech space. They finally find that kill, and ZZA is taken down low.
Was not the big fan, a big fan of Baby Bay's positioning there with that tactical visor. That was easy. I mean, Ginger Pop and ZZA just hit around the corner. Ginger Pop pops that Resurrect there just to make sure that the Pharah gets back up. Sound barrier now out from both sides. We'll have to see. They used a lot of ultimates in that last fight, but now Transcendence coming through. Dogman should be able to keep them alive for the time being here, X.
And we did see that actually used to kind of basically just kind of time out those sound barriers that did wind up going out. Granted, when Dahoon popped his, he only actually got 4 members of his team with that, so they actually lacked a little bit of that extra sustainability, especially since they didn't have the Transcendence available for themselves, obviously, as well. But that's the self-destruct coming out. Is the barrier going to be able to absorb it? It actually does, and it looks like Kungarna finally getting control once again.
Oh, that is, oh my goodness, Bishu with the perfect positioning of that defense matrix. Basically mitigating all of that damage coming out from the Pharah and the wasted ultimate right there. So that's a big pickup. Not necessarily wasted, but I mean it didn't get much value off of that. So a big pickup there for the side of Kungarna. But something funny there, Bishu pops his self-destruct and Space does it like half a second after, so Space isn't able to remech and gets taken out there by the self-destruct. A big pickup for them, and now they flip the point and they should be able to take the lead here.
Certainly looking for Baby Bay to put some real amount of pressure out onto ZZA here. Try to deny Ginger Pop a res if he possibly can. I mean, definitely want to look for that. Pulse Bomb goes out. Michael finds an opening pick.
And the opening pick onto XQC is probably the biggest one you could possibly get. That or Ginger Pop if Ginger Pop has a Resurrect. And he was 4% away from that one, so it's pretty big that they were able to take care of business in a timely manner. If Ginger Pop had been allowed to stay alive for 5 extra seconds here, because that could have been a complete turnaround with a big Resurrect coming through.
So Transcendence going to be up more than likely at the basically like the latter end of this fight. Dogman needs to stay alive, so they really need to peel XQC and Space off if at all possible. We already see them getting very aggressive. If they can find a pick in the back line and just get back onto the point, win the fight over time, this will be good for them. But ZZA already found the kill onto Pooks.
But there's a Resurrect ready to go here from Ginger Pop. 3 are down. Ginger Pop sitting up top. He comes back in. Does he get the Resurrect up? Ginger Pop gets 3 up. Saves himself with the invulnerability, immediately going to be taken down. So is XQC. They have the Transcendence. They have a sound barrier if they need it here. We're still in the first round, though. A lot of good action yet to come in this one, but it looks like Kungarna might have this one in the bag. There's still a few people around. Sound barrier comes through to secure this one here, X.
Definitely looking forward to the rest of this series because this has been an absolute bloodbath so far. I really like the way that we saw those ultimates lining up for Kungarna. I mean, that Transcendence coming through right after the res to just basically just keep them alive, keep them healthy, keep them sustained through that res as basically Ginger Pop wanted to use that as a momentum shifter, and it was basically just denied outright by that Transcendence that was pulled out there by Dogman. So really good pacing of the ultimates that just kind of worked out in Kungarna's favor here. Now we're going to definitely be seeing if we're going to be seeing any changes to the compositions. Obviously with Sanctum, what you'll typically see is teams going over to triple tank. We don't see that as of yet. I mean, you know, teams like Rogue will certainly play the dive. We'll have to see if maybe both these teams want to stick with what has been working for them or if they want to switch things up. And it looks like they're just going to be going with the dive here, Storm.
They're going to be sticking with that Far Mercy setup. I think that can work pretty well here. Concussive Blast can be a vital utility to really get some knockoffs there, along with the help of the Winston with Primal Rage and Space even getting a little bit of that displacement as well. But we're going to see a lot of aggression come out right away here from the side of Kungarna, just kind of bowling them back here. And unfortunately, they lose 2 crucial people early on, so they're going to be forced to just give up this point.
Yeah, very early on too. I mean, it looked like YIKES basically just kind of rolled in and just said, you know, just leave, just get out of here, yeah, just back off. And Kungarna was like, all right, sorry, we'll go away.
They just kind of dove into that waiting room back there and found those easy picks there with the help of Space and XQC. And that's like what you had said. They create a lot of pressure and a lot of positioning, as they should, on those 2 particular heroes. So right away, they are going to come out with the first points. But again, they're back up there, taking care of business on the Dogman. They know Dogman is a priority target target because he's such a vital part of the team composition for the side of Kungarna with those Discord orbs, but maybe Michael and company can turn this one back around.
Yeah, I mean, between Michael and Dogman, that's really like what's dealing with XQC in the long run. Obviously, Baby Bay putting out some pressure, everybody else is putting out pressure, but really it's Michael just aimed directly at XQC at all times. As soon as you see that Winston in the picture, Michael is just barreled down onto him completely, sometimes looking over at space as well, but primarily you're going to be seeing him all over XQC with that big headshot hitbox. He really wants to just use those discords in his favor and really just rip him apart as often as possible.
And man, it is fun to see Michael play that Tracer once again because, you know, he kind of changed the roll up a little bit. Ginger Pop comes through though. No, he gets two people back up into the mix here. They're going to go ahead and hold on to the point for the time being, but Baby Bay with that tactical visor will be able to secure those last couple of kills. But like I was saying, you know, Michael on that Tracer is something we saw back when Kungarna was on the rise back in November. We saw how aggressive he really was on that Tracer and bringing out the skills here once again today.
Now, this is the question here because as this looks at the moment, if the barrage is dealt with there by Bishu, we already saw him do a good job of that. We're going to be more than likely seeing that tide-turning fight happening right around that 60% mark. So if Kungarna can hold their ultimates in a really strong way, in a strong fashion, then I think, honestly, Kungarna might have a shot here to win this map as well, but we'll have to see if they can get up to that 60% without having to use too much.
CZA popping that barrage from downtown. I think he was hoping to get a Tracer, but was able to kind of skedaddle out of that one. Sound barrier comes through. They still hold on to the point. Bishu picks up two. That's a nice pickup. Taking care of business onto both XQC and the Farah there. So with that, YIKES, that should be the lead, but a lot of ultimates were actually used there. And that's going to be tough moving into this next fight for Kungarna.
Absolutely. I mean, the big one that I was looking at was Dogman. That's obviously a really pivotal ult in any kind of team fight, but certainly one that you expect a res to come out in. Ginger Pop right now at about 70% going into that Resurrect. You certainly want to have an answer to something like a tide turner like that. You definitely want to have something at the moment. Really kind of you're just hoping that the pulse bomb is going to be enough and maybe you have enough space after the res.
And Space not really on the same page with XQC because he was on the point. YIKES, as soon as he touched the point, he was taken out of the mech, so that's not really too good. Ginger Pop was at 94% on the ultimate, so again, that's the second team fight on this point in particular where we've seen Ginger Pop fall just short of having his Resurrect. How vital would that be if he could have had those in both those team fights? That could have been a victory for them by now, but now 12 seconds to go. One final opportunity for YIKES.
And now the real big problem is Pooks has had enough time to generate out that sound barrier. Dahoon's not going to have one of his own, so they do have some way to deal with that momentum shift that's going to occur when the Resurrect does come out. A lot of aggression coming out from XQC as he pops the Primal Rage, but he's going to be forced back, and look at Space too.
Ginger Pop does have a Resurrect though, so if they lose a couple, that should be decent for him. Michael, fortunately, going to be taken care of to get things started. They're in overtime. Remember, they got the point flip, so Kungarna really not paying attention. I think their main target, of course, is to win the team fight, but there's Ginger Pop getting his teammates back up into the mix here. Going to give them the numbers advantage.
But Ginger Pop gets taken out. It's going to be down to Baby versus Dante. Dante does come out ahead on that one. Then remember, they do have that point still in their favor. Kungarna making that re-entry, though.
I think they just need to, they should have died off at that point. They 100% should have died because Baby Base just now coming off of the respawn. But XQC, okay, that's a nice pickup. Remix and Dogman taking care of business there. The Primal Rage is out. They might be able to disperse them quite a bit here, so maybe it was a good move from Kungarna to actually continue to funnel into that one. Normally, I wouldn't really sanction that, but there's the Transcendence we're looking for. Only 3 people on the point here for Kungarna, though.
But Dogman forcing out the Transcendence at a time where really, you don't really want to see it at that point. He really kind of just did it so he can sustain on the point a little bit longer. Overtime going to take down. Oh, man! Bishu gets back up onto it. Ginger Pop needs to be taken out, though, if they want to have any hope of holding on to this one, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. YIKES more than likely going to be stealing this one away here.
It looks like they should have the utilities to do it. XQC still ready to go with the Primal Rage. He should, oh, Remix barely gets back up just to be taken down there. Overtime takes down, and we've got a map on our hands here as YIKES tie this one up on Nepal 1-1.
Oh, man, and now going on to Shrine. That's going to be the interesting one because both of these teams obviously very strong at holding defensively. So, I mean, when you have that advantage of, not only utilizing the LOS to your favor, just kind of getting behind those pillars, but also having that height advantage once you're on the point, Baby Bay might be able to go to town with that. Maybe ZZA is going to be able to work his way around that point with a lot of finesse, and that's going to be a huge problem if he can actually control the Farah in a really, if he could be elusive in that way. Certainly looking for that too, but at this point, it's still anyone's game. Like I said, this has been an incredibly close series. Throughout both maps now, And I couldn't even tell you who I think would win because, I mean, it's so up in the air at this point.
Well, don't worry. I usually ask you that, but not going to be doing that here. It's a very close one here. 1-1. 1-0 lead in the best of 3 series, though, to Kungarna, so they have a little bit of wiggle room. The third map is Lijiang Tower, of course, for those of you just joining us, so we would go back to King the Hill, which could be interesting, especially with how close Nepal seems to be right from the get-go, as ZZA is all alone up top, maybe thinking he had Ginger Pop around the corner. Unfortunately, wasn't able to reach him there, and this should be the first team fight wrapped up here for Kungarna if they can find the remaining stragglers.
They need to get these last couple of kills, primarily one onto Dahoon, because he's just kind of sitting on the point, and if they can get that kill quickly, and it looks like that is going to be actually one of the last kills, if not the last one, but still, they do manage to get control of the point, and they're going to start ticking up some score for themselves, and that's definitely going to be good.
And I liked what Remix and Bishu were able to do there. They created space right from the get-go. Like I had mentioned, the Farah from YIKES was pushed out from the rest of the team. He was forced back because they're all clumped together, and Bishu and Remix just kind of pushed him up top, found that easy kill. And again, Space is a little out of position here. He is able to jet back onto the map here, but regardless, look at what they're doing, taking care of business up in the skies more than likely, as Remix is looking for that Farah pick who has has the ultimate ready to go, but Baby Bay coming around the corner has his just a tactical visor ready to go and able to zone him back for the most part here.
That was actually really fortunate timing for Kungarna. I mean, Michael got aggressive when he did have that pulse bomb at the ready, did actually stick it there onto XQC, and it slowed down the aggression that you were going to see from those two guys that we talk about all the time, XQC and Space. And because of the fact that they were pulled back a little bit when ZZA and Ginger Pop came around that corner, they didn't have any extra pressure. They didn't have anybody else for Kungarna to look at. So, you know, they just got pressured so early on, and Kungarna was able to just snowball from that. So, again, very fortunate.
Ooh. Two early picks, though, coming out there, and Ginger Pop with the Resurrect. Can he get it off? Oh, he gets most people back up. Unfortunately, his fellow Farah not a part of the mix as Baby Bay to come down a little too far out of that Resurrect range, and they're going to be at a numbers disadvantage still, but Michael coming up on a Pulse Bomb, that's pretty big, especially if they can put that on to XQC, who's already at half HP. And he's just immediately dropped. Didn't even need the Pulse Bomb.
And again, you have to be very afraid of Michael when you're on that Winston. I mean, especially when Dogman has those Discords ready. We didn't see that coming together as much with that particular kill, but still, that's been, I mean, time and time again, that has been an issue when XQC tries to get aggressive, he jumps in, and Michael just dunks him with Discord up as well. Again, that headshot hitbox for Tracer is just so easy to hit. If he doesn't have that barrier up, or if he's not looking at Michael, he's going to drop quick.
Nice sound barrier from Dahoon coming out there, able to hit all 6 to get initiated in this next team fight. And Bishu pretty low, but Baby Bay coming out here with the Tac Visor again. Is he able to get anything? We're in overtime already here, so as long as Kungarna can contest this one throughout the entire fight, despite if they even lose it, they're looking pretty good, especially with Dante going down here.
Yeah, they really need to die together if they possibly can, though, so that they can just kind of, if they even wind up dying, I mean, we still see Discords coming out and Baby Bay able to just rip everybody out of the skies. That's Ginger Pop and ZZA down. Storm, it looks like Kungarna is actually just going to be able to win this one.
Especially since Dogman is now sitting on a Transcendence. If there's any DPS threat, which there doesn't seem to be, especially since ZZA isn't a part of the mix. Dante coming up 40% off of that Pulse Bomb. We'll have to see if he's even able to stay alive that long. Doesn't look to be the case in the most dominating round coming out there. 100-0 for the side of Kungarna, 1 round away from securing a 1-0 start in Group A.
Man, I mean, this is it. This is potentially that. I mean, this is that match point. Kungarna, we talked about it before, what this means for them, making a statement against a team that just wound up winning that Alienware Monthly Melee. Again, if they actually do wind up winning this, they're looking very poised to make their way through that Group A and make it into the playoffs without a scratch, because this is the main matchup that I was kind of scared about for them.
I can't emphasize enough to how crucial it is to get that #1 seed. It's a single elimination bracket tomorrow, which means, you know, it's luck of the draw with the second seed you get if you are for your first seed. But looking at each group has 2 to 3 extremely strong teams here. So, you know, starting out on the right foot with a 1-0 lead would be crucial, but still an opportunity for YIKES to pull this back as we head to Village.
And look at this, a comp swap. They're going to actually go over to that triple tank. If this works out and they actually get Sanctum next, they might be able to pull something out here if this all works in their favor. But obviously, if we get Shrine as that 5th map, that could create issues, as Kungarna just looks so solid on this. So far, the healing is looking good as Dahoon and Ginger Pop are coming together for a lot of support into guys, especially like Space.
Well, we did see the change-up coming out from the side of YIKES. Nice hook to get things started from Space, but was completely voided out by Bishu, just being in the right spot with that defense matrix, saving Michael's life on the Tracer. And just like that, doesn't look like it's going to be panning out too well for YIKES, as the point does go over to Kungarna to get this one started.
And again, have to be very careful around Michael, especially on those really, really big hitbox characters where he can just decimate you, because not only is he going to rip you apart with Dogman, with those discords, I mean, that's certainly already going to be a problem. You know, the fact that they have the discords with Michael and Baby Bay, they're going to be able to rip space down if they get that sightline for it. And because of that, they're also going to be getting those ult charges up very, very quickly, and they're going to be at a distinct advantage. And we see the Pulse Bomb going out, dish out a ton of damage onto XQC.
And Ginger Pop drops immediately. It doesn't look like Dante was able to find anything. Dogman lighting up the kill feed with the kills here, and it doesn't look like the triple tank setup is really working out. I mean, you're at 40%. This is almost to the territory of, I guess they're coming up on a couple of ultimates here. XQ, stick with these characters, because Space and XQC are still 30+% off.
Man, I would be very, very worried if I was YIKES at the moment. I mean, obviously ZZA is that Graviton is something that you're really looking forward to as a potential tide turner here in this matchup, but is that going to be enough? I mean, you have to win a lot of fights after that. The Transcendence comes out before the Graviton comes down, though. And they've traded. This is good for them.
Well, they don't have the Graviton just yet. Now he has it ready to go, but XQC, the kind of the front line, isn't up in the fight. And that Graviton Search only hits Remix, and unfortunately, it drops in Bishu. Bishu has the defense matrix. He gobbles up all the damage from Space with the whole hog, and it looks like maybe YIKES have an opportunity. They have two people on the point. No, they're going to lose their Zarya. Now 80% and counting for the side of Kungarna here.
And that looks as though, I mean, we are seeing YIKES reapproaching the point, but they don't really have much left. And oh, the Pulse Bomb goes out. He does find the kill, but he kills himself along with it. Baby Bay still there to finish the job, though, and Dante does get killed off as well. So they do secure this, and now they're going to get very aggressive, just try to slow down the pace of the engagement to maybe just ward them off the point. But they get on anyway, so they are going to trigger overtime here, Storm.
And this is do or die. They have everyone back into this. Maybe a little bit of an early sound barrier coming out there from the side of YIKES, but they didn't really get a whole lot of value because now Michael comes around the corner. There's the self-destruct, picks up one for himself. They have all 6 back up in the mix here. It looks like Kungarna are on the verge now. That overtime is ticking down pretty quickly. That's going to be it. Kungarna grabbing a tremendous victory over YIKES here. Did not see that one coming.
And 200 O's to close things out there on Nepal, starting off there, of course, on Shrine, and then into that second time on Village. But Michael, of course, bringing in a little bit of that BM, you know, as Michael is used to see it. But here's the thing, he hasn't had an opportunity to do that in quite some time because Splice just wasn't very successful. So now he has to come back in. Now that he's finally having some success again, he can talk some smack, I guess.
You know, I guess it's too early to say how far Kungarna will get after just that big victory, but that's pretty big for them moving forward. And I'm just thinking right now, stick with this roster for the time being. Give it a little time to see what happens. I mean, both sides of it. That was a close one throughout, but Kungarna getting off to a 1-0 lead here in Group A. That's going to push down YIKES, of course, to 0-1. But looking forward, Evil Geniuses now they're kind of going to have to take down one of those two teams here if they want to move on, and that's what we have up next. Evil Geniuses coming up against Kungarna. What do you make of that?
Well, Evil Geniuses is going to be an interesting one because they've had some very inconsistent match results. They've been winning and losing to the same teams. I mean, you're talking about Envision, Selfless, Tempo. I mean, they have wins over those teams, but they've also gotten losses over those teams. And another point to bring up again is that teams that do win against Selfless, other than Rogue, I mean, how consistent are those finishes? Is it a problem? Is it something good about those teams, or is it a problem with Selfless with their, I mean, inability to close, you know, maybe not throwing. Sorry, I don't mean to say that, but potentially just kind of choking a little bit towards the end of tournament series, and we'll have to see. I mean, certainly they're looking like a very much a favorite in this tournament, but if they get second or third in this tournament as well, I don't know even what to say at this point because it's just another tournament where they really should be doing, I mean, first place finishes in my opinion.
Well, Kungarna coming off of a hot victory yesterday in the qualifier and finding themselves with a 1-0 lead. Guys, we're going to head to a short break. When we're back, we are going to have Evil Geniuses and Kungarna still in Group A, but we'll be back in a few. Don't go anywhere.